Gameplan for Good is the podcast that brings you stories of world shakers and champions of change. Join us as we dive into the journeys of innovative business leaders who are making a positive impact and creating a better world. Uncover their game plans for success, discover groundbreaking innovations, and be inspired to unleash your own potential. Get ready for a brighter future in business with Gameplan for Good. Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Gameplan for Good. I am very excited to have Ray Keefe here today. How are you, Rafe? Rafe? How are you? Great start. How are you, Ray?
I'm very good, Shady. Oh, sorry, Shady.
All right. So Ray is the co-founder of Successful Endeavours. Now, you are in engineering, but you guys have won 50 plus awards. So can you just introduce, I guess, Successful Endeavours and tell us a little bit about maybe your top three favourite awards?
Okay. So Successful Endeavours designs electronics products. They're generally complex, smart products. The intent is to make them in Australia. So we're trying to change the Australian economy. It's a big job. We need a lot of help. And one of the things my business coach said to me was, "Are you guys any good?" And he said, "I don't want to see your website. I don't want to see your brochure. Don't give me your elevator pitch." He said, "I don't believe any of them.
Right.
Prove it."
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, how do you prove it? And so we've gone down the path of using awards as external validation that we've got something to offer. So it's not just our words, it's somebody else, looking at an application, assessing it, and deciding that there's something there. It's got a bit carried away. As you said, we're at more than 50 now. We don't compete in the local council awards anymore because we've won enough of them, so we're leaving space for somebody else.
Yeah.
In terms of the things we're most proud of, the first significant awards we all won were in 2009. So they were design awards, so innovation and design awards for analog design and particularly tricky things.
Yep.
So for me, they gave us a real tick on our technical capability. 2010, we won Casey Business of the Year. I think the most surprised people in the room were us, because you know your own business and applications are always sunny side up.
Yeah.
But every business has got its challenges. It's still got things that's improving. And so you probably are more aware of them and less aware of the stuff you've already got under your belt. So that really helped us to appreciate that we may be doing okay.
Yeah, so you're actually good at what you do.
Yes.
Which you established that.
Yeah.
And you built the trust. You build the trust with obviously the awards.
Yep.
And then but to be able to get an award for your business and how you run your business, that is different, right?
An award is exactly the same as a sale. So when you're selling, what you've got to do is understand the other person, what they need, what their hot buttons are, if you like. And then what you've got to do is present to them something that they understand that gets them over the line. In terms, marketing at its heart is telling the truth about who you are so the other person gets it. It's not convincing the Eskimos that the premium ice is worth paying more for, and a lot of that manipulative stuff you might see. Marketing is just learning how to be authentically true
100%.
to yourself, so you can say that in a way that the other person gets it. So the key here is understanding the other person's perspective and what they need to hear from you, not for you to con them into something, but for you to offer them something that's going to be really good for them in a way that they actually understand the value proposition. Awards are the same. They ask questions, actually answer them.
Yeah.
Provide real data. If they say provide evidence for it. Don't be worried about who you are, because who you are is actually who you are.
Yeah.
Think more about how do you convey that to the other person. So marketing, sales, awards, project delivery, these are all just about getting on with the job in a way that the people you're engaging with also understand.
Yeah. And so there'd be businesses out there that are deserving of awards but have never applied or never been nominated. What has that done for your business, having those 50 plus awards?
Yeah, so the businesses that don't apply for awards have done us a favour because it's made our life much easier at winning them.
Right.
If I look at the local council awards, we're in the city of Casey, and I know these stats because the council published them. Less than 1% of the businesses in Casey actually apply.
Wow.
So that immediately gives us a huge advantage. the fact that we've also learned how to do a good application. So I would encourage you, if you're in business, engage with your local council awards for two reasons. The first one is so you get used to explaining yourself to other people, because that's really helpful to your whole marketing, your whole sales, your whole, having a chat with a prospect or even an existing client about how you could assist them to get to where they want to go. It'll help with that conversation. But secondly, if you do it on an annual basis, it kind of gives you the ability to look at your business year by year, because a lot of people don't actually do metrics on their business. They don't say, are sales up, are sales down? And the human brain's really interesting. In the absence of real data, it'll invent the data it wants to believe.
Yeah, it's true.
So, get some real data behind your business. Not that you'd make all decisions based on data, but because there are decisions you make on values as well. But if you understand your business better, you'll be able to run it better.
What's the application process like? Is it extensive? Does it give you that much of a diagnostic of where your business is at, or?
Yeah, so the Casey Business Awards, which are the council awards that we're familiar with, because that's our council region, they actually get you to walk through who you are as a business, what you do, who you do it for. They get you to walk through your basic business metrics of how your business is performing. They don't tell you what to present, but they ask you to present your slice of how you view your business. They ask what you're doing about sustainability, what you're doing about quality, what you're doing about equitable hiring practices and all those kinds of things. So you might get 11 questions over the course of that, and then they have industry-specific categories, and you might have 3 questions focusing on that industry category that are specific to it. So, for instance, manufacturing is one of the categories that we were eligible for. So they had questions about how do you manage quality? And so that allows you to unpack, these are the things we do to make sure that we're actually delivering good value to our clients.
Yeah, and there'd be different aspects where you'd think, okay, well, that's easy to answer that one because we do that really well. But this, we're struggling to answer this, and to ask us to present how we operate that side of our business is like, well, we have to explain this now and think of it from the point of view of the listener or the watcher.
In other words, this process exposes your gaps.
Yes.
And so that's really valuable, because the thing that holds most businesses back is not the stuff they're already good at. It's the stuff they currently suck at that they're not paying attention to.
We were talking about, you had that example of the bucket of water.
Yeah, so in military circles, they have this thing called a reverse salient. And the reverse salient is the thing that's preventing an army of foot soldiers from being able to advance. And in the days of Napoleon, for instance, that would be if the enemy's holding a hill, then you can't advance past that hill, because otherwise the enemy can now shoot into your backs, because most people have got more armour on the front than the back. So you have to actually take that hill before you can advance. So in business, it would be the thing that's holding you back from building a market presence, getting more prospects, converting more leads, delivering more projects, whatever that happens to be. The way that I look at it now is that if you've got a wooden paling bucket with those vertical sides on it, and you're trying to get water into this bucket and hold as much water in the bucket as you can, then the amount of water you can hold in that bucket is dependent on the shortest one of those slats.
Yeah.
What most people are doing is they've got strengths in their business. They're the long slats. They're making the long slats longer and wondering why their business isn't doing better. And that's because they're not fixing the problem. Now, their business probably does do a little bit better, because when you improve a long slat, it has leakage effects to other things, unlike in the bucket. So what most people fail to realise is that Michael Porter's book, The E-Myth, Michael Gerber, book The E-Myth, says technicians start businesses to do something for other people. And then they try and work out how to sell that. Then they try and work out how to, build a business around that and expand that. And that's generally an unsuccessful way to build a really good business, because to build a really good business, you have to decide who you are, who you're going to service, where you're going to be in the market, who else is in the market. So you actually got to do the marketing piece first.
Yeah.
Then you got to do the positioning piece. Where am I? Where are the other options? My biggest competitor is not another business that does what we do. My biggest competitor is the idea in people's heads that you can't do this in Australia anymore, that we can't make stuff in Australia, that Australia just doesn't do that anymore. And so I have to, part of my sales process is I actually have to give people hope that they can actually do this.
Is that part of your, I guess, part of your own personal game plan for good is to change that stigma around manufacturing in Australia?
It is, and there's some specific reasons for it. The moment the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund are trying to lift Asia out of poverty, they're using manufacturing as the engine to do that, which is why we see, and China have really got this, and it's been of tremendous benefit to their economy. Manufacturing has some specific characteristics. First of all, it creates tangible value. So it's not leverage off intellectual property, it's actual physical product.
Right.
The second is that it creates a lot of indirect jobs around it. So if you've got one job in manufacturing here, so this is a Victorian government statistic, one job in manufacturing here, 5 jobs around it in industries required to support it. Because if you've got manufacturing, you've got to have accountants, you've got to have lawyers, you've got to have courier drivers. There's a guy driving by with a coffee truck for morning tea and afternoon tea. There's the local milk bar, there's the cleaners, there's the suppliers who are delivering goods, there's the freight handlers. All these things sit around this person's making a widget. All these people are also getting employment and benefit.
I'm around that as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I've made videos for engineers before.
That's right. So marketing, how do you market? How do you tell your story? We were talking before about telling your story. Video is a really good way to tell your story because you're seeing, like at the moment, you guys are looking at me talking. This is me telling my story. Hopefully I'm using words and concepts that make sense, but you can see it happening for you, and you can tell if I'm making it up or not. I mean, that's one of the strengths of video, is it actually brings a bit more credibility to the table than really nicely written up PR prose, because it's got real people in it. The third part of manufacturing is that it actually distributes wealth through a community more evenly than any other industry. And that's because all of those jobs we talked about, they employ people at every socioeconomic level, all the way from the lawyers who are going to benefit from the stage 3 tax cuts, all the way down to people who are doing cleaning, delivery driver services, so-called lower value jobs. They're not really lower value, they're different kinds of contribution. The barrier to entry in those jobs might be lower, but if they aren't done, we're in trouble. So, I really love the story. JFK has gone to NASA and he's done the big speech. We're going to put a man on the moon this decade. He's done the speech. He's walking around NASA and he meets a janitor and he says, "What's your job?" And he says, "I'm helping to put a man on the moon."
Yeah.
Now, he's doing that by keeping the place clean because that's really helpful to the people who are using the place. But he actually understood the connection between this mundane activity from one perspective and the big dream. So every person who's contributing to the big dream is contributing something valuable. So that's the other thing. I have staff. I don't want my staff thinking, "I'll raise the smart one." I want my staff thinking, what can I do to really deliver what our clients need today, to really deliver what the country needs today. So we've picked on manufacturing for those 3 reasons. There is a 4th reason. I love making stuff. So if you're going to do something, if you can do something you love, it makes it easier. It makes the emotional energy required to get over the humps easier. So that's why I've picked that. I mean, I've got grandchildren. I want to leave them an awesome economy full of value so that they can continue to make the world a better place like I've had the opportunity to. Business is not a mechanism for strip mining wealth off other people as rapidly as you can while delivering as little value on the back channel as you can get away with, because that's called being a parasite. And it's
so that's part of your game plan for good as well, isn't it?
Be a contributor.
Is to be a contributor and to give. So in what ways you do presentations? That was one way we spoke about, that you actually give back. What are some other ways?
So anything that we can do that helps improve the whole ecosystem. So I need to step back to business models. Most people's business models look at transactional analysis and lead generation, lead conversion, average lifetime value of a client, those kind of metrics.
Yep.
I actually see business as an ecosystem. It's a bit like a garden. And there's all these different plants planted in the garden. And what we want is for the garden to flourish and thrive. Now, if I, as one of the plants in the garden, are just trying to hog all the water, all the soil, all the sunlight for myself,
Yep.
then the plants around me are going to suffer. And if they suffer, the garden's not going to thrive. So I might do better for a little while, but eventually I'll start dying as well.
How is the in terms of what you're talking about, that garden, if in manufacturing, like what is the state of, like, do we see a lot of collaboration in manufacturing? Like, do we see a lot of completing, not competing, like that kind of mindset? What is that?
Yeah, so in 2000, I'll answer the question indirectly because it needs some background for the answer. In 2016, Senator Kim Carr gave a presentation to the Australian Manufacturing Symposium. He had his office take the OECD figures for the world and distill them down in terms of where Australia sat relative to other countries in the world. So Australia's an OECD member country. We were one of the 32 member countries. So that's the Overseas Economic Development Community. And so we provide figures because that's our obligation. But they collect figures on everybody they can, via any channel they can.
Right.
So he determined that of the 181 countries in the world that they could actually measure something on, Australia ranked country number 181 for business-to-business collaboration. So we are the least collaborative business environment in the world.
Whoa.
So I'm an engineer. I believe that you can't solve a problem you don't understand. So if I'm trying to change the Australian economy, and this is where our awards are helpful, we've got both technical and business awards. So that says we can execute the technical piece, but we also understand the business piece. And so I can say to clients, look, we understand that you need us to do good work, but we also understand you need to be able to make money from it. And so if we think that the project's headed in a direction where that can't happen, we're happy to have that conversation as well.
Yeah.
Because we want you to succeed. If you don't succeed, then my fiendish plot to expand Australia's capability to be a good, contributor to the world is going to fail.
Yeah.
So I want that to happen. So that's the first stat.
Great.
The second stat is Australia has the lowest rate of academia to industry engagement in the world.
Say that one more time.
The lowest rate of academia to industry engagement in the world. So Australian universities are less engaged in industry, measurably so, than any other country. Not entirely their fault. Federal government funding policy pushes them in that direction.
Okay.
There's no requirement in federal government funding of universities for them to be industry relevant.
Wow.
Unlike Germany, where they actually have a 70% requirement.
Yeah, wow.
Attached to the funding. So because of that, we have a low rate of publicly funded research commercialisation, but we also rank very low on access to finance and very low on commercialisation capability because of all of those things. So
Wow.
if that's a problem, then the solution to most problems is to do the opposite. So we try to be inherently collaborative. I give away a lot of stuff that I don't transactionally charge for because it's helping the garden, the ecosystem to thrive. Because if I help someone today who's in my ecosystem to do better, that will eventually help. And the business quote that I really like in this space is "a rising tide lifts all boats."
Right. Yeah.
Some
yeah.
ancient Greek dude.
Yeah.
It's been lost. It's been lost. I used to really like Aristotle quote, which is the purpose of the organisation is so that ordinary men and women in cooperation with each other can do the extraordinary.
Yeah.
That really resonates with me. But
Yeah. Awesome.
a rising tide lifts all boats actually speaks to the ecosystem piece. So if I do something that lifts the tide today, even if I don't get direct financial result from it today, it's still achieving my purpose.
That's awesome. And so, but what is Australia doing well in manufacturing?
Yeah, so Australia does really well at problem solving. So we're really good at problem solving. We're really good at creative thinking. We're very resourceful. So the flip side of the anti-collaboration is that we're really resourceful. The negative of it is that we don't see the people around us as partners. We see them as people who want our money.
So we just assume that we need to do it on our own.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's a problem. I'm gonna tackle it,
That-
or me and my team will tackle it. But there's no point talking to Joe Blow down the road who's probably been through that problem and found a better solution. We'll just
Yeah.
roll up our sleeves and do it ourselves type thing, which is a good positive and a negative.
That's the positive. The negative it leads to is when you fail to see the fact that Joe Blow down the road, who can actually deliver this at 1% of the emotional stress that you would be doing it at,
Yes.
and also get it just out of the way quicker. So it's like, I've got this problem. I could do with some real help here, but I've got some barbed wire back here. I'm going to try it myself first, and then we just keep trying to make the barbed wire work, and wonder why we keep getting slashed. And so that failure to see the potential for partnership. So we don't have suppliers, we have partners.
Yeah.
We have fellow design businesses. In fact, we are suppliers to some of our so-called competitors,
Yeah.
and some of our competitors supply services to us.
Yeah.
Like we did a project a while ago where there was a digital signal processing expert in another business. We actually bought some time from them to get his input on our project because he really knew that stuff. And we wanted confirmation, and it was the best way to get confirmation of whether the approach we were thinking of taking was the best way to go or not. And he actually came back with 2 ways we could go about this that we hadn't even considered. Now, it turned out we went down the path we'd originally decided because it still had merit, but it was really good to know that we're on the right track.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that sounds like it's part of the culture of what you guys do at Successful Endeavours. But for a company that feels like they're living on an island and they're not collaborating, but they see benefit, where do they start? Is that like a networking process? Like, what is the process to start building that as part of your culture?
Yeah, so there's a few different ways. We just try to be really good partners for the businesses we engage with. We have a lot of conversations like this. So we're not paid to be business consultants, but because we've had to get our own act together on the business front, we can sort of have some of those conversations as part of the project management, client management part of the process. I go along to networking events. I do,
which is where we met.
That's right. So we met the Nari Warren Berwick Business Group, which is 3 business groups joining together. That's what we want to see, is people actually seeing partnership, not competition.
Yeah.
So that's a really good example of that. Because previously they were just doing their own little thing each. Now they can do something much more significant.
Yeah.
They have the potential to be the most significant business group in the region if they keep going the way they are. So I'm going to support that because even if not one of the people going there ever turns into a client, they're lifting the tide.
Yeah.
For everyone.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and I got that sense when I was there. And I think you and I met within the first few minutes.
That's right.
And I heard what you had to say about Australian businesses and what's going on and what's the climate and the landscape at the moment. I thought, it'd be great to get you on. So, yeah, awesome. I want to ask you more about the clients that you work with.
Yep.
So you said there were 3 tiers of clients.
Yeah, so we've got 3 primary tiers of clients. The group that we have the most success with are medium-sized, large, small businesses to low, medium-sized businesses who've got existing products. They've established themselves, but their products are getting a bit old in the tooth, or there's new competition or new technology in the market. And so what they really need to do is revitalise their products in order to be able to compete. So they'll get us to take their existing product line and either uplift it or sometimes start again. Because sometimes uplifting something that's based on all the wrong principles for the new market. We do a lot of custom IoT, so Internet of Things. So these are devices in the field that use web services to communicate back to internet to communicate back to web services as part of their value proposition. So water metering, waste management systems are good examples. We're doing a whole bunch of tracking and logistics projects at the moment.
Yeah.
Now, you would think that because there's such a large number of products already on the market, that the product that you need is got to be in someone else's catalogue. But it turns out that that's often not the case. And that's because products have stakeholders and they're designed around the existing stakeholders' needs. If your needs are different, then this product is going to have features which aren't working for you. If you only want 10 of them, you're going to buy that product and put up with it.
Yeah.
But if you're going after a significant market, like one of our clients is going after a market of 30,000 units a year, so they are going to make that product suit that market. And so they're going to pay what it takes to really be able to claim that whole market and deliver the full value package.
Yeah.
So we start a new Internet of Things custom appliance project every 2 days at the moment.
Yep.
It means we've got to finish one every 2 days or we get commercial indigestion. And I'm hiring staff as well at the moment, and we'll be moving to larger premises later in the year.
Well, my son's an electrical engineer. He got the other side of the brain that I didn't have.
Yeah.
But you never know. He got snapped up by the company that he did work for while he was doing his degree. But
that's often the way.
Yeah.
So
but you're a good contact for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do internships as well. I don't see an internship as a chance to get some free labour. I see an internship as a way to switch someone on to what's possible for what they could do with their life.
Yeah, my son's like 100 an hour or something like that.
Yeah.
So he's very good though. He's very cluey.
So there's the Greeks, we have a lot to thank the Greeks for. We have one thing to not thank them for, which is the concept of true and false. Because many things are not either true or false. Like, are you old?
No.
Depends on who's asking the question, doesn't it? Am I old?
Easy answer.
To one of my grandchildren, I'm old. Yeah. So, there are many problems which aren't solved in true or false land. They're on some side of a spectrum between true or false, or maybe it's 0 to 100%. So there's a lot of things which are analog rather than digital and binary. And we've used way too much of the Greek logic. So, we see it in politics all the time, this logic used. Like, the Liberal Party can manage finances, Labor can't. It's not as simple as that, because they're actually trying to do different things in the economy. So what you're managing and how you're managing it is different because it's coming out of your value set for what you're trying to achieve. So true or false is not...
I'm sure there is a massive, and as much as I'd not like to get into politics, but I'm sure there's a massive spectrum for right and wrong in politics.
It's ethics and morals, values-based decision-making. Is tricky because it depends on your values. I use that one because it's an easy example to understand. And you have to understand this. If Australia is an uncollaborative environment in business, what we're seeing in Canberra is an exaggeration of that problem driven through the pressure of that environment.
Yeah.
So they say you get the politicians you deserve. I'm sorry, guys, it's true.
Right. And so, so first tier, second tier of clients?
Yeah. So the other two tiers of clients are smaller and larger businesses in that spectrum. The larger businesses are generally multinationals who have factories in Australia, but who don't have design teams in Australia. And in one case, the overseas design team that's meant to be designing products for the Australian factory won't do it because there's a factory in their country they'd rather support.
Yeah.
So the Australian factory is just going to die.
Yeah.
And so they don't want to die. We don't want them to die either. We like them to keep making stuff here, particularly since this factory is 98% export. So they're getting us to revamp an entire product range and uplift that to not modern product capability, but to the product capability that they expect to be able to compete with, over the next 10 years. Because industrial products often have long shelf lives.
Yeah.
If you've got something in a rack in the back of somewhere, it doesn't need to look pretty. It just needs to work.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
In and out.
And if you've ever opened up a washing machine, you'll know it doesn't look pretty back there.
Well, no, and it's functional.
It's like you almost step back in time. If you look back and you look in there and oh wow, it looks like that.
So they have mechanical operations to perform. So the laws of physics are what they are. And so to make things mechanically spin, you've got to have some kind of a drive belt or a gear train or a motor. And so the format they might be in can change as technology changes, as materials change, but you still got to get energy in one spot to another spot doing useful work.
Yeah. And so tier 3.
Yeah, so tier 3 are generally smaller businesses. They're either already in the market, but what they're doing isn't working, so they want to pivot, or they have a product that's not good enough, and it got them off the ground, but it won't get them to where they want to be. Or they might be in startup mode. I think startups are still finding their feet in Australia. The US Silicon Valley startup culture doesn't work here for a number of reasons. One's the lack of collaboration. Second one's the lack of finance. Third one is the lack of understanding how to really do deals so that all the stakeholders benefit. So when we're designing a product, so we'll do a segue and come back. When you're designing a product, the question is, what does the product have to do and who does it have to do it for? So if you've got a product that delivers value to every stakeholder, it's likely to be a successful product. So the pricing has to be in an acceptable range. Really lazy salespeople and people who don't understand markets just want the pricing to be cheap. Real products that deliver real value can afford to be the price that they are because they do that. Stakeholders commonly forgotten are the user, manufacturing, the sales team, the service team, the installation team. And so you can have a product that works from the perspective of what the design team intended, that's actually a complete failure in the marketplace because if the sales team can't sell it. So as an example, one of the industrial products we did, they exhibit that product primarily at trade shows. So this is a high voltage product. And at a trade show, you don't have 25,000 volts AC lying around. It's just not OH&S possible. So how do you demonstrate a product functioning at a trade show when you don't have the input ingredients needed? So one of the features we built into the product was the ability for them to have a laptop running a program that would let them set up scenarios and fake those scenarios across to the product so you could see how it was responding to those scenarios. So rather than say, how does the product work? Let me tell you about it. Here's a brochure. They go, let me show you. So as a customer engagement piece, this is now really powerful because you've got a guy coming over. He's touching. If you think about sales from the emotional perspective, the more connected a person gets with a product, the more likely they're going to buy it.
And how impressive is that, the ingenuity of setting that up so that it can be demonstrated.
So that was an idea we brought to the table when we asked, because I asked the question I ask often first at the beginning of a technical electronics development project is, how are you going to sell it? Who's going to sell it? What does that sales process look like? And they go, oh, we'll set up a website. Okay, we're in trouble already. I don't care how good my team are.
A website doesn't exist unless you get people there.
Well, that's a different issue as well. But I don't care how good my team are or how good their work is. If that's your sales strategy, it could all be for naught. So I really want people to think about route to market. Route to market for me is the key to success. And the second key then is making sure all the stakeholders who touch it along the way, including now with circular economy through to how do you repurpose, recycle it, what do you do with it at the end of its life? That's now becoming an important piece, an important stakeholder in the design process. So it's about having that system view of the process. So back to startups. I think the real challenge in Australia is that a lot of the cultural aspects we have here at the moment work against startups being able to succeed. So I'm not saying they can't work. I'm saying that they have some challenges in this environment because of those cultural aspects. I think people who set up a conventional small business as their starting point and work forward from there have got a much better chance of success, in my experience.
Interested to know, so you have had some startups that come to you from the ideation stage. Have you had any that make you laugh? Like, are there any ideas that you've just thought, well, I don't know if you can disclose them, but...
Okay, I can give you an example. This will all be anonymised for the purposes of... so you have the tradie who doesn't want his tools stolen. So he wants a battery-operated camera and tracking system on his tools.
I thought you were going to say booby trap for the back of the...
No. I think they do know that wouldn't be legal. They have the dog there for that. But you know, he wants a product that does all these things. So 5-year battery life, cellular and Wi-Fi connected. The tools are traced, even though they're inside a locked metal box, by some kind of tracking technology. And it has to look like, Apple designed it, sort
Yep.
of stuff, and the budget for pulling this off is $5,000.
Yeah.
So we get things in that direction where the guy's got a problem he wants to solve. So in that situation, we'll come back to the problem you're trying to solve is, and you've had an idea. So
Yep.
what we don't do is we don't just dismiss this out of hand. Because this is not his domain experience.
Yeah, right.
I mean, he's come to us having put some thought into how he would solve this problem. What we try and get back to is, what's the problem statement? What problem are you trying to solve here?
Yeah.
And then we can have a think about whether you can do that or not. So I picked that as an example where we will have clients who are basically semi-clueless in our domain, telling us how
Hence
we will,
why they're talking to you.
but they're telling us how we will do our job.
Right.
At the beginning. So we take that as an opportunity to educate them about what's possible and to potentially swing that around. We do have a lot of people who don't think they can afford to do things properly. So they're trying to do things as cheaply as they can get away with. And I don't want them to fail.
Yeah.
So I'm not even going to take money for what they can do for now, unless I believe it's a sufficient step forward for them to be able to take another step. Because not everyone could go, bang, we're successful. Sometimes you've got to do it in steps. Banks, there are no small business loans in Australia. They're all directors' guarantees or mortgage guaranteed finance packages by banks. We don't have business finance here in the way that you do in the US, in the way that you do in Europe. We don't have old money here. We're a relatively young country. We're a relatively rich young country.
Yeah. And you spoke about, we talked about your pricing being more affordable than the competition that's out there. And
it depends. And so, because what we're trying to do is help our clients succeed. So we're trying to work out what they actually need. I'm not going to sell them something just because I can if I don't think it's going to actually help them to succeed. We're roughly the sixth, seventh largest business in Melbourne in our space.
right.
We are up to 10 times cheaper for similar packages of work to some of the other businesses. That's not a fair comparison though, because with those businesses, you're buying more than you get from us. So for instance, we don't have, ISO 91,000, military defense contractor delivery, standards, quality standards, those kinds of things. We don't have ISO 13485 medical device development standards. All of those systems have system costs associated with them.
Yep.
If you need that sort of development work done, you need to go to someone who's set up for it.
Yep.
We've deliberately not put those structural costs into our business because most of our work doesn't need them.
Yeah.
And so what I do is I see those businesses who are set up for that as our partners. And if this client needs that, then we go, you should talk to, because they've got all this stuff in place. If our clients have those quality systems, we can work inside them through their system.
Yeah.
And so that's the reason why our price can be more cost effective. Not every business treats other businesses as partners. Some of them have more of a, we're just going to milk you for as much money as we can get out of you. And so, you do see that in the marketplace. So that's not us either. And then below us in size, there's probably 400 other businesses in the Melbourne area doing some of what we're doing. So one-man band, two-man band businesses, ex-R&D engineers, probably doing extremely good work in what they know.
Yeah.
But because of the lack of collaboration, we often get projects where someone else has started it and they could get 80% of it done.
Yeah.
But they couldn't get the whole project done.
Yeah.
They also won't get help.
But it's the client coming to you, not
The clients eventually...
not a referral or a collaboration or a partnership or anything.
No, the client in despair is giving up on them and then going looking for somebody else.
Yeah, right.
And so this is where the awards help. Give them confidence. We're at least worth having a conversation with. So if we talked about awards before, how do people decide that they will approach you to at least have that first conversation? The awards are one of the tools that has helped us to build, that approachability.
Yeah. So I'd like you to finish this question or this statement. In an ideal world of Australian manufacturing, I'll try that again. In an ideal world of Australian manufacturing,
Australians would actually understand and value the manufacturing we really do here already. Let me unpack that. During COVID, we added 100,000 direct jobs in Australian manufacturing. That brought it up to 1 million, which is where it's sitting. It's sitting around 1 million direct jobs in manufacturing in Australia. There's only 9.8 million full-time jobs in the entire economy, and 1 million of them are full-time manufacturing jobs. If you run the jobs multiplier ratio, manufacturing is probably the single most significant industry in Australia for job creation and value creation. Now, the way it gets sliced, of course, is the indirect industries like transport and supply and export and logistics and freight and lawyers and accountants and all that sort of stuff. They're all in their own categories, but that work, those jobs are actually dependent on the manufacturing piece. So if we conservatively take the Victorian government 5-to-1 ratio and we turn it into 2.5-to-1 across the country, then that means that a quarter of all the full-time jobs in Australia are dependent on manufacturing.
Wow.
And so that's the other reason why I'm really, really pushing this barrow, is because if we want to grow the economy, we want to grow the value, we want to create future jobs, we want the next generation to be able to have careers that they can really believe in, then we actually have to have value-creating activities in the economy that do it, and manufacturing is the industry that does it. That's one of the reasons for picking it.
Explain to me your logo. And by the way, I love that, and I wanted to end on that, but I also wanted to just talk about quickly what your logo means, and then I want to talk about how people can get involved in what you're doing.
Okay, so we might be able to slice a graphic into this, but our logo basically is 3 lobes sitting in a triangle with a gap in between them. So we've got lobe here, here, and here, and then
it looks like that the toy where you have to follow the light, and there's four lights. It's a 3 version of that.
That's right. So Simple Simon. It's a triangular version of Simple Simon.
There we go.
So we talked before about how you communicate, about how video is really important. Graphical representation is really important as well.
100%.
So, for instance, I noticed on your logo you've got an upward pointing arrow.
I do. Yes.
Yes. So what does that message communicate to people? It communicates some kind of improvement, some kind of a lift that they're going to get.
And it's a play button. Did you get that?
Oh,
it's a play button.
No, I didn't immediately
secondary
get it.
to the arrow, right?
Yeah. I can see that now.
Yeah.
So your logo gives you a conversation piece with your clients, potentially, if they ask. So our logo does as well. So every project has attention. Generally, it's got one thing which is its primary priority.
So this is one segment of the logo.
Yeah.
This is
So
attention.
if the gaps in between the logo stand for, is your priority cost, is it time, or is it performance? So, and getting the balance of those right is how you actually deliver a project. So if you need performance, if your product has to perform at a very high level, then you're going to have to spend the time and the money to get there. Because if you shortcut that process and the performance isn't there, the project will fail, if that's the most important aspect. Sometimes you have a deadline that you've got to meet. So if you've won a tender and the tender says you must have stuff on a pallet landing at the warehouse of government department XYZ on a certain date, that's your priority.
Yeah.
And so you have to do what the money and the performance things have to do in order to pull that off. And if you've got a fixed amount of finance available to do a project, then you've got a fixed amount of finance to do the project. So maybe the question is, rather than I need all of this and it can only cost that, maybe the question has to swing around to is, okay, this is the fixed bit. What can we do in the other areas to still make this work? So that's where the idea came from. And this came from talking to a graphic designer who sat down and said, Ray, what do you do? How do you do it? What's your process look like? What do you care about? And he came up with this logo, and he's given me an incredibly useful tool to have conversations with clients, because they go, oh, that's nice. It's green. Oh, were you trying to get on the sustainability bandwagon? And I go, well, no.
That was my next question.
Yeah. Circuit boards basically are mostly different shades of green. So the logo is actually reflecting.
Oh, right, because there's that deep kind of bottle,
Yeah, yeah.
not bottle green, but deep kind of green.
Yeah. So depending on the construction of the circuit board, how much copper's on it, underneath the top coating and that, you'll have different shades of green. And so that's where the concept for the colours in the logo came from. It just happens that it also talks in, we can have the sustainability conversation as well. So what you want in a business is every touch point with a customer should resonate back to them that we've been telling the truth the whole time, that this is not a con, that this is real. And so what I want is I want everything that we do with them to be reinforcing the fact that who we said we were on day one is actually who we are, and that they haven't been trapped into some kind of a false
it's authentic
relationship.
That's awesome. And the last question I was going to, if people in the industry want to collaborate with you, if potential customers want to contact you, what's the best way to get involved with what you're doing in terms of your game plan for good, and also just to engage with you as a client?
Our single biggest lead source at the moment is our website, so successful.com.au. It's one of my few bits of marketing goodness at the beginning of the company was coming up with the name Successful Endeavours. It implies that it's going to be a good outcome, because R&D is seen as risky business. So I wanted to provide some trip assurance to customers. So successful.com.au.
Yeah, it speaks more to the journey. So it's more about the journey than just the project.
I mean, we could sell Tony Robbins videos with a name like that as well. But
true, that's what it actually intrigued me, that it didn't like a lot of company names will basically describe what they do.
Yeah, that's right.
And this describes what you do, but
this is the outcome from the project process rather than the outcome for the technical part, and it reflects the fact that a project has multiple stakeholders. The circuit board that they're going to stick in their product that they sell to their customers is a really important output. It's insufficient for success. My team can do an absolutely brilliant job of delivering a technical brief, and the product can still be a failure because of one of these other factors. An example is we worked with a company. So this is an example of an unsuccessful endeavour, unfortunately, but it'll highlight the point. We worked with a company that wanted to design a new product for the US market. It's a mission critical product, so it's an infrastructure grade product. So they have a working design. It's working really, really well, and they're starting to talk to customers in the US. What the customers are telling them is they would consider buying the product, but they have to offer the same as the competition, which is minimum 2-hour response time to a product failure in the field.
Wow.
Which means you've got to have a Learjet at multiple airports with a full technical kit on board and all the spare parts, and a technician who can get on board that at 3 a.m. in the morning and fly to site and rescue that situation. So the barrier to entry in this market is not the technical capability of the product, it's the full service delivery of that support package. So in that particular case, it didn't turn out to be unsuccessful in the end because he found somebody else who had that, and he basically on-sold the product to them. So in other words, he exited a market that he knew he couldn't afford to engage with. But so he's still got a return, but it wasn't the market he originally went with. So on our website, there's a contact form. So if you drop your details in there, they'll eventually wind their way through to me after about a day. Also, we're pretty Successful Endeavours has a street address and a phone number on the website as well, so feel free to ring. So most people fill out the form on the website, which I find really interesting. Do a web search, find us, contact us that way. So this is where web as a marketing platform can be really powerful. We have a video on the front of our website.
Wow,
that's an engagement piece.
I'm impressed with that. That's awesome.
It was an easy video to get. So we enter the council awards. They do videos. The people who do the videos, the council give them permission to on-sell the videos to the winners and the finalists, but they have to change the voiceover.
Okay.
Because the voiceover for the awards is the one the council wanted.
Yeah.
So what you do is you pay $600, and the business that's doing the videos for the council will give you a new voiceover, package that up, and ship it off to you mega bargain
But
deal.
just having a video on the website, I'll do my little. I see everything through a lens of videos, a video, and how it can improve businesses. But having any video, and I don't suggest anyone has bad videos, but having any video on a website can increase retention by like 40 plus percent. The stats are through the roof. So the fact that you have a video on your, is it in a prominent position on your?
Yep.
Yeah, so that
it's above the fold. That's the technical term the digital agencies would use. So you can't not see it when you go to our website.
And some companies have videos. I could talk for another 3 hours, obviously, about video, but some companies will have a great video, but they'll have it on hidden away on a page somewhere, deep inside the website. It's just yeah. Anyway, that's great. But do you have any speaking engagements coming up?
So next week is Australian Manufacturing Week, so second week of May, and it's also the Australian Electronics Manufacturing Week. So I'm giving 2 presentations at that. One is how to onshore your electronics manufacturing back to Australia. In other words, what steps you would need to go to if you've got primarily an Asian supply chain currently sending you circuit boards to actually start doing that through local manufacturers here. And the other one is this from idea to successful electronics product journey, which is really looking at the stakeholder concept that we've gone through today, which is no stakeholder left behind, if you like. Otherwise, you're in trouble.
Yeah, and so if people want to find out about those things, is that posted on your news part of your website?
So we have a blog.
Or LinkedIn? Or?
Yeah, so we have a blog, so you'll see that it's either the most recent or the second most recent post on our blog. It's also on LinkedIn, it's also on Facebook, it's also on Instagram. It's
Successful.com.au, right?
Successful.com.au.
Awesome. Great to have you in.
Yep.
And thank you so much. I've learned a lot about an area I don't know a lot about in manufacturing. But it's good. It's really good to hear that we have good people like you that have a greater mission, a game plan for good, out there raising the tide.
Absolutely. And having done a few of these, I can tell you that Shad's setup here is absolutely first rate. So if you're thinking about doing something like this or getting a promotional video done, Shad understands what it actually needs to be. So he can, and this is one of the things about sales. It's so much easier to sell someone else than yourself in Australia. The tall poppy syndrome is such a big
I don't have to be the smartest guy in the room doing this.
No.
That's what I like.
Yeah. So Shad knows what he's doing because we had to talk about, so he's got a really good process. So if you're thinking about this, I can tell you that he's an A-game player in this space.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you for watching Game Plan for Good. Stay connected with us on social media to discover more game-changing stories and gain valuable business insights. All of our episodes are recorded in our Assertive Media studio in Melbourne.